Hello, my name is Alexander LaFontaine. Today we'll be looking at wrestling and be doing a full sport analysis. So just to have a little introduction, it's been in the Olympics since 1896, and the two main styles that they have is Greco-Roman and freestyle, with the main difference being that Greco-Roman only upper body is allowed, meaning there's no targeting the legs, no using the legs of any kind. And for freestyle, essentially anything goes, from ankle picks to things of that nature. Official rules state that an average match is two 3-minute rounds with 30 seconds of rest in between, and the three main ways to be able to win is victory by fall, where one of the wrestlers is pinned on both shoulders and the bout ends immediately. Victory by technical superiority, there's essentially a 10-point lead from one wrestler to the other. And victory by points, where the wrestler obtains at least 1 point more than his opponent. In addition to the two periods, if the score is tied, the winner is declared by the criteria, and the bout ends at a regular time. So talking about the physical demands. In wrestling, there are numerous sudden explosive movements that are based on both attacks and counterattacks that require repeated maximum and submaximal work. Research shows that anaerobic power has been suggested to be a measure to aid in the differentiation between successful and less successful wrestlers. So the main thing they're saying there is when it comes to wrestling, the whole point is for one person to beat his opponent and essentially dominate them. And it goes through from them attacking the opponent or essentially countering when the opponent attacks them. And it's a lot of high explosiveness and a lot of endurance and a lot of being able to maintain a high work capacity to be able to continue to repeat these movements. In Greco-Roman, again, the use of only the upper body, so the emphasis is more on like throws, holds, and carries. So improving their strength and power performance is very important. For freestyle, since they can use their legs and essentially target the lower body, there's more emphasis, for example, on ankle picks, toe holds, things like that. So being able to improve agility and flexibility would be a lot better for freestyle. A study we saw looked at around the work to rest ratio, and it's anywhere from 2.2 or 2.4 to 1, with essentially glycolytic being 62 to 67% of the energy used, aerobic supplying about 26 to 30, and then the PC with about 5 to 6. So again, there's a lot of repetitive, explosive work in wrestling, so the glycolytic system is definitely being targeted and definitely doing most of the work, if not all the work. The aerobic system is there for bits of recovery. Again, they only have 30 seconds, and in between those altercations, there are some bits of time to recover. So the aerobic system does help. In the PC system, it helps, but it's not really a big playing factor when it comes to wrestling. Some KPIs, key performance indicators, work capacity, increasing the lactate threshold, improving buffer capacity, because with glycolytic, there's going to be a lot of lactate buildup and acidity and essentially fatigue and discomfort. So being able to increase how much lactate the wrestler can handle, as well as being able to buffer the hydrogen ions and the acidity to be able to keep performing is important. Peak power again, power production from either specific power-based exercises or even sport-specific, practicing the throws over and over, or practicing, the ankle picks over and over, but working on speed. Some strength endurance presses, any types of pulls, pull-ups, rows, squat to presses, being able to drop down very quickly and then essentially be able to push up or grab the opponent. So squat to press is a very good exercise for that. And then a lot of agility from acceleration, deceleration, change of direction in different planes of motion. Because with wrestling, you're not just going forward, but you maybe have to step to the side. Maybe you need to be able to go very quick to grab and then pull back. Or maybe you need to go around yourself to get to the back of the opponent. So there's a lot of different areas and locations that a wrestler may go, but it's all very quick, or else they might end up losing the ability because the other opponent's faster. Now looking at common limitations, studies show that around 9 to 10 incidents out of 1,000, most injured location being the knee at 21%, then shoulder and ankle. The knee is a very common area for wrestlers to get injured. First and foremost, because a lot of their takedowns or initial takedowns, which they call, a shoot, is going to be very focused on the knee and the position. So either bad form from there can cause problems, or even being able to, do a bad form takedown, that can also cause problems. Types of injuries: sprains, infections, and strains. Sprains, again, we look at the knee being the most injured location. So, sprains in the knee from the ACL or MCL, LCL, PCL, being able to infections. This is a sport that there's a lot of grabbing and holding. So things like staph infection can be very common if proper hygiene is not something that the wrestlers are focused on. So we want to make sure, to be able to reduce the chance of these injuries with proper strength training. Information for success, improve the glycolytic system, improve that work capacity, power and strength. This is a very powerful, you're essentially going against an opponent and forcing them to do what you want. So you got to make sure you're strong enough to not only be able to withstand them, but endurance to be able to hold them for a while. So muscular endurance, and again, agility in all planes of motion. Now we're looking at training strategies. Power in every workout, it's just a given. This is a power-based sport. There's a lot of heavy explosiveness, so power is very crucial. Strength and endurance, we do need high strength, but we also need the endurance to be able to hold positions when they're essentially, one person's trying to take down the other person, and being able to hold certain positions or be able to resist them with good grip strength, things of that nature. Agility, for better control, better movement around your opponent. Metabolic conditioning, because again, there's going to be a lot of acidity. There's going to be a lot of things that need to get buffered, or else fatigue will set in, and that's just going to limit how strong, how fast, and how efficient, and in the end, how successful one wrestler will be compared to the other. Looking at a sample macro, we're looking at the off season, which for the Olympics is usually between the spring and summer. Preseason will be the end of summer and the fall, and then in season slash, which is more in the winter, is November and March. For off season, we're looking at general prep phase, just getting the athlete accustomed to movements, getting them to where we want to be able to then load them with heavier weight or faster movements, get them more comfortable and get their body essentially ready to produce those things. Some anaerobic endurance, again, glycolysis, and that threshold is very important for them. Some hypertrophy and strength to get them bigger and stronger. Then in the preseason, we need power. Again, focusing on the heavy power, focusing on the speed, focusing on quickness. Again, agility and glycolytic, fast, 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 quick movements in all planes of motions. Again, all that's going to require the ability to keep going, and with a buildup of hydrogen and ions and a buildup of lactate, we need to make sure that the wrestler can handle that. Power, strength, being able to produce power quickly and strong. Then in the season, continuing with power, strength, some speed, agility, then getting a little more sport specific. So instead of doing glycolytic with sprints, we're going to do as many sprawls or as many takedowns or as many throws as you can in a period of time. Now looking at workouts, here's the first one. We look at power glycolytic. We're looking at some power moves, some hang cleans, quick movement of the hips, some push press, quick movements of the arms, some pull-ups to get a little bit of strength, unilateral jumps. One thing when it comes to takedowns is there's a lot of staggered stance positions. And if your opponent, for example, does go for a leg, what's called a single, you're going to have one leg in the air and one leg on the ground. So being able to jump with that other leg to keep balance and essentially keep fighting the takedown is going to be important. So being able to not only be strong on one leg, but also being able to resist and avoid getting tired. And then we end with a sport specific exercise, a sprawl. So keeping 1 to 3 rests. So essentially very quickly done for a very short period of time, and then doing it again and again, getting accustomed. Workout 2, nice speed exercise. So we start with some sprints, not necessarily going 100%, but going for a longer distance, and then essentially shortening it so that it's essentially quicker. Then we start adding some change of direction with like the 5 by 5, make sure you're going both ways. Then some short distance, working on just acceleration and even deceleration, which we have like a 2-second hold at the end. So once they decelerate, in that essentially would be that staggered stance position, dropping and holding. And then what's called the split stance or staggered stance, eccentric drops with iso hold. So essentially being, and we'll look a little bit more about this actual specific exercise later on, but essentially being in that staggered stance and focusing on the eccentric portion of dropping down fast and holding. Because if an opponent is coming and trying to grab you, the one that's faster at dropping most of the time will be able to be more successful. Workout 3, a power endurance. We got some power cleans, trap bar jumps, some Bulgarian split squats for some unilateral work, barbell bench and barbell rows. Again, focusing more on higher reps for that endurance because there's a lot of endurance required in wrestling. You know, being able to hold certain positions or being able to resist your opponent in certain movements or positions. And then workout 4, power strength, some split jerks, front squat to press, loaded depth drop. So essentially working on that speed of being able to jump high and power with some weighted pull-ups, and then lateral shuffles to acceleration. So laterally shuffling for we got 5 yards, then essentially turning quick, and then sprinting for the last 10. Now looking at specific exercises, I mentioned one called the sprawl. The exercise emphasis is on pushing the hips back and dropping center of gravity to counter an attacking opponent. Common movement to counter a takedown and keep a low center of gravity to maintain a stable base. I say best use like glycolytic sport specific at the end of the workout, aiming 5 to 10 reps at max velocity with a work to rest ratio of 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. Then here's just a quick little video of it. So you see, immediately pushing the hips back to lower that center of gravity. Of course, it'll be a little bit quicker in the actual heat of the moment to say. Next exercise we have is the front squat to press. Exercise emphasis on squatting then pressing up. Combination exercise that mimics dropping down to go for a takedown and then essentially squatting up and using the arms to be able to push, to pick up the opponent, to drop them, whatever it is. Should be used as strength or power and should be used as a strength or power and is using the push press variation with the rep ranges anywhere from 3 to 8. And then on this slide, I'll show you a quick little how it should go. Squat down, immediately up, and then right into the press itself. So there we go again. And now the last one, the staggered stance, eccentric drop with iso hold. Exercise emphasis on a fast lowering of center of gravity to prepare for a quick takedown while holding the flex position. Difference between this one and the sprawl is a sprawl is more of a counter. This is more I'm making the decision, so I'm going to drop and then go. When going for takedowns, the difference between success and failure can easily be speed differences. Essentially, whoever is able to drop faster will win the altercation, whether the one attacking or defending. This can be unloaded or loaded and used as either a strength exercise or an endurance exercise. And just to show you here, the main focus we're looking at is being able to drop fast, hold, and then come right back up. Now, in conclusion, wrestling is a demanding sport that requires precision and an outlasting work capacity. With a work to rest ratio around 2 to 1, the glycolytic system is predominantly active with the aerobic system in the background assisting the anaerobic. Areas to focus when improving is work capacity, peak power, strength and endurance and agility. And working to strengthen the knees and ankles in all 3 planes of motion will reduce injuries from occurring as often as knee sprains tend to be very common. Now for a little quiz. Question 1. What are the 2 styles in wrestling? Pick them all. Greco-Roman, Olympic, freestyle, or grapple. Question 2. True or false? In freestyle, athletes can only target the upper body. True or false? Question 3. Official match times are 3 2-minute rounds, 1 10-minute round, 4 4-minute rounds, or 2 3-minute rounds. Question 4. What is the work to rest ratio, more or less, in a match from what we saw? Which energy system is most predominant? PC, glycolytic, or aerobic? Which area is the most commonly injured? Head, shoulder, knee, or ankle? And which type of injury is the most prevalent? A strain, a sprain, contusion, concussion? True or false? The sprawl exercise raises one's center of gravity. True or false? Question 9. The front squat to press exercise is what type of exercise? A combination, a contrast, a complex, or a compound? And question 10, what year did wrestling enter the Olympics? 2004, 1984, 1896, or 1834? And thank you very much. And that was the sport analysis on wrestling.